Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here as part of Career Week here at Pepperdine. This is one of our final events during this week, and hopefully you've made it out. I see some familiar faces, so hopefully you've made it out to be able to participate in some of our other events. We are privileged today to have Adrian Granzella Larssen joining us. She works at themuse.com. She's the editor-in-chief there. She is a Pepperdine alum, both of the Seaver College program as well as the Graziadio School. She has an MBA. And I had the privilege of working with her for a number of years in our university events department here on campus, and then she went off to do much grander and more exciting things. So I'm sure she'll share a little bit about her journey today as we get started. But Adrian, are you there on the line?
I am here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
All right.
So thank you all for joining us. I'm going to turn over the microphone to Adrian and let her get started. But if you have questions, we'll be opening it up for those at the end. If you are calling in or logging in online, you'll be able to submit questions through the chat box. So we'll mediate those toward the end of our program. So welcome to Adrian Granzella Larssen.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Amy, for that warm welcome. And thank you, everybody, for being here today, for taking time out of your Friday. As Amy said, I'm Adrian. I am a two-time alumna of Pepperdine. I graduated from Seaver College in 2004 and then went back for my MBA and graduated in 2006 from GSBM. And then went on to work in events, work in marketing and communications before joining the Muse about 2.5 years ago. So I've done a lot of different things over the course of my career. And a couple of things have just stood out to me and kind of been consistent throughout the way. One of those things is that I meet Pepperdine people wherever I go. I've moved to a few different places and been a part of Pepperdine alumni networks everywhere I've gone. I've met Pepperdine people randomly through jobs, through friends, through random happenings, random restaurants. And Pepperdine people and Pepperdine alumni are just better than the average bear. I say that everywhere I go. I think you will all find it as you go throughout your careers. Pepperdine people are amazing, and it's just an amazing network to be part of. I'm so thankful to be part of that network. I'm so grateful to be here today. Thank you so much for having me. This is actually one of my favorite topics to talk about, networking, because it used to be one of my least favorite topics to talk about. I was really sort of afraid of networking. I was intimidated by it. I avoided it at all costs until I realized that when I did do it, it had just this amazing impact, and it paid out in so many ways. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more today. First, I'll tell you a little bit about what I'm doing now. So I work for a company called the Muse, and the Muse is a career and job search site that aims to make the whole process of figuring out what you want to do with your life, finding a job, succeeding once you get there, much easier, much more fun, and much less painful. What you can do with the Muse is get career advice. So everything, resume tips, negotiation tips, cover letter tips, interviewing advice, to then starting your first job or starting your first management job, dealing with coworkers, dealing with a bad boss. You can also look into companies. So we have gone in and profiled amazing companies, Facebook, Pinterest, Sephora, companies across all different industries and all over the country, and giving you sort of an inside look at what it's like to work at those companies. And then finally, we have classes. So we have intensive email-based classes on networking, on resumes, on management, on Excel, all kinds of things. And you can find those at themuse.com/classes, particularly the networking one. If this is something that you want to learn more about after we finish the session today, the networking class is really, really helpful. And I'll drop the link in the chat window at the end of the session so you can see it. But basically, I joined the Muse about 2.5 years ago, and it's based in New York. I'm there right now and wishing I was in Malibu with all of you, but very, very glad to be here. Let's go ahead and get started. So the agenda for today, I'll talk a little bit about what the point of networking is and sort of how I look at it as a whole. Then we'll move on to what networking kind of typically looks like, which is going to those networking events and meeting new people and how to really get the most out of those. Then we'll move into turning those contacts that you meet at networking events or that you meet through work or that you meet through your family or friends or wherever, turning those into job opportunities, because there's really an art and a science behind it. And then finally, I will save some time at the end to ask any questions or to answer any questions that you have. So I'll start here. And I often start this with talking about one of the first networking events I ever went to. I was an intern at a PR firm in Sacramento, California, and my boss took me to a networking event. And I showed up and, everybody's kind of standing around talking, meeting and greeting. And this woman walked into the room and she had a stack of resumes. And she was going up to everyone in the room and saying, "Hi, I'm so-and-so, and I'm looking for a job in PR. Do you know anyone who could help me?" And handing out her resume. And then she would go up to the next group of people and do the same thing. "Hi, I'm so-and-so, and I'm looking for a job in PR. Do you know anyone who could help me? Here's my resume." And I watched this kind of happening and thought, oh my gosh, this looks terrible. I feel so sorry for this poor woman who needs a job. And I feel so sorry for anyone who has to network, because if this is what networking to get a job looks like, I want no part of it, and it looks miserable. It took me, not that long to realize that that is not what networking to get a job looks like, but it's a much more subtle and it's a much more longer term process. So how I look at networking now is it's not about meeting people who get you a job that day or who you can call tomorrow and be in instant contact. It's about meeting people and about turning them into connections that can be long-term relationships. And those long-term relationships are what can help you get a foot in the door with a company, get you an interview, help you in your job search or in your career. But it's not about making those kind of short-term day-to-day connections. It's about meeting a lot of people, absolutely, but then it's about turning those people into long-term contacts and relationships and having those people really want to help you in your career. So it's really not about the events. I say a lot that it's about playing the long game. That said, I think to play the long game effectively, you have to play a lot of short games. And that's why networking events is so important. So that's what we'll talk a little bit about now. Networking events, there are tons of them you can go to. Pepperdine has great alumni events. They're actually way more fun than most networking events that I go to. Industry events are great. Conferences, meetup.com has tons and tons of just networking events where you can go and meet people across all different industries, which can be great if you're sort of not sure what you want to do. But whatever you choose, these are some of the kind of guidelines, the tips and tricks that have helped me make the most out of those events. The first one is to really get comfortable. And this is something that I think a lot of people forget. It's something that I used to forget a lot. When you walk into a room and you're meeting tons of people, you want to be at your best, and part of being at your best is getting comfortable. So I always, bring a small purse instead of a huge purse. I always check my coat, which you guys don't have to worry about because you're in LA. I always wear something that makes me feel comfortable. I don't wear my, interview suit. I wear a dress that I like or a necklace that I like. Another thing I used to do a lot in the beginning was bringing a friend. You don't want to spend kind of an entire event hanging out with your friend and not meeting anybody new, but kind of having a wingman to go in with you can make going into a networking event a lot less intimidating, and that can be really helpful. And then finally, just kind of relax. I often tell myself before going into networking events to pretend like I'm at a dinner party, pretend like I'm walking into a room with people who, sort of already know me or might be interested in getting to know me. Everybody's there for the same reason. Everybody wants to meet people. These things can be totally intimidating, but if you relax and remember that everybody's in the same boat, it can make things a lot easier. So something else that's really helpful in getting in the right frame of mind is to set a goal. And this is something I did a lot at the beginning. So setting a goal kind of gives you a mission for being there. It helps you focus on what you're there for, and it sort of helps you break out of your comfort zone. So for example, you can say, at this event, I want to meet 5 new people, or I want to get business cards from 10 people, or even, I want to start a conversation with 2 new people that I don't know. Start small, and then kind of as you go to more and more events, you can set bigger goals for yourself, but kind of setting small goals and then achieving them helps you feel a lot more comfortable when you're doing this for the first time. Moving on, number 3, this one I love. So arm yourself with conversation starters, or have some conversation starters in your back pocket. One of the most intimidating things I think about networking, and one of the questions I get a lot, is how do you just walk up to somebody and start talking? And I think a lot of it is, just walking up to somebody and starting to talk, starting the conversation. But this can be a lot easier to do when you have some kind of go-to conversation starters in your back pocket. And we have a great article on this. I'm actually going to put it in the chat window so you guys have it and can take a look. And it's broken out into sort of what kind of situation you're in. So, if you're at an event where you've just finished listening to a speaker, a great one that you can start with anybody is, wow, that speaker was amazing. I really enjoyed it. What did you think? If you're at an event with food is always an awesome conversation starter. The shrimp looks awesome. How is it? Tell me about how the wine is. What are you eating? I also really like the compliment approach. So walk up to someone you don't know who, has an interesting necklace, who has an interesting sort of name or name tag, and make a conversation starter about that. Also, the simplest ones I think sometimes work really well. I had somebody the other day just walk up and say, hey, I don't know anybody here. I'm Mike. Can I chat with you for a few minutes? And people are obviously open to that. Again, this is something that people are doing for a reason. We're all in the same boat. So after that, your goal is really to just make conversation with people and get to know people. Again, this is where sort of, even if you are looking for a job, even if you are hoping to, get something out of the conversation, you really want to get to know somebody and make a real connection with them. And there are a couple of strategies that work well here. So one is, and this works well, especially if you're shy, to ask the other person questions and to ask a lot of open-ended questions. So not, where do you work, or do you like working at Google? But, what are you working on these days? Or what is it like working at Google? Kind of open-ended questions that get the other person talking can be a great way to kick off conversation. The flip side of this is to also be really open to conversation yourself. I think a lot of people, when they start networking for the first time, don't want to share too much, or are afraid of sort of bragging or talking about what they do and what they're looking for. But the truth is, kind of making these connections requires that you two are really engaged in the conversation and open to conversation. So, when people ask you questions, also be really open-ended about what you're doing and what you're working on. I have another great article that I want to share with you that talks about kind of how to answer what do you do, and I think this is really a really good tip for people coming right out of college. I think that was something that I struggled with a lot, right, when I was coming out of college, and people would say, well, what do you do, or what are you looking for? And I didn't really have an answer. And we have a great article that sort of breaks down what you can say in those situations when it might be a little bit awkward. And I'm going to paste that in the chat window right now, Joe. Step number 5, I'm including in here because this can be sort of another awkward thing about networking events. So you're talking, having a great conversation, building rapport, sort of hearing what the other person does, sharing what you do. and you're at this big event and there are 35 other people there that you want to talk to. How do you sort of wrap that up nicely? And I think there's a formula that works really well here. And one is to, again, start with a compliment. Say something like, it's been so nice chatting with you, or I've really loved our conversation, or I'd really love to talk with you more. Then come up with some sort of exit line or excuse. I'd love to chat in detail more, or I have a few other people I want to talk to here, or I need to get going, but thanks again. And then you'll want to follow up or make a plan to follow up with this person. So that's what we'll talk about a little bit now. I would say that when you meet people, you're going to want to follow up with them within 48 hours. So whether that is connecting with them on LinkedIn, sending them an email, you want people to remember you and remember who you are when you follow up. I think a lot of times I will get emails from people I met, 2 months ago at a conference, and I don't remember who they are, and that's really a tough situation to be in. So you want to follow up with people, while they remember you, while the event is fresh in your mind. And you can do this, again, via LinkedIn or via email. If you're using LinkedIn, which hopefully you all are on LinkedIn, I think it's just such a wonderful, powerful, and amazing tool to connect with everybody in your life. Make sure that you include something fun or interesting. You don't just say, I'd like to add you to my network on LinkedIn. Everybody does that, and if you can say something that's a little bit fun, a little bit interesting, that talks about something you talked about or some kind of connection that you made, that could be really helpful. Same thing if you are emailing someone. It's great to reference, something you talked about the night before. That can make you really memorable. And that's really the first step to turning everybody you meet into part of your network and building a relationship with everyone you meet. We'll quickly recap before moving on. So getting comfortable when you're going to these events, setting a goal to make sure you make the most out of them, planning conversation starters that make you feel comfortable, relaxing, just engaging in conversation and meeting people, and then following up, which will bring us to the next part. One thing I do want to point out too is, I hope you've noticed sort of a common theme. Networking isn't about kind of schmoozing or exchanging business cards. It's about making those real connections and building those real relationships. And I think getting past that mindset for me was really a turning point in helping me get excited about networking. And yeah. All right, let's move on. All right, so I'm going to start this section with one rule to remember, and that is that people are generally willing to help others, but they want to help people they like, and they want to help people they respect. So they'll go out of their way to help people, but probably not for just anybody. And implicit in this is that they want to help people they remember, not somebody they met randomly once at an event. This happens to me actually quite a bit. I'll meet somebody and then, 3 months later, I will have heard nothing from them. They'll call me and say, or email me and say, I see that you have a job listed. Could you recommend me? I've met them once and I'm not really compelled to go out of my way to help them. On the other hand, if it's somebody who I have a relationship with, I've met a few times, or I've stayed in touch with, I'm absolutely willing to help. So your first step is to stay relevant and to stay top of mind with anybody that you meet. And there's a couple of ways you can do this. So getting really active on Twitter and on LinkedIn, I think is really important. And not just kind of being on there and connecting with people, but going out of your way to, tweet articles or share articles on LinkedIn, to kind of congratulate people when you see they've done something interesting, to keep tabs on what everybody in your network is doing, to really just kind of be engaging online, not to an annoying degree, but just sort of being out there and making sure people still know you exist. Even if it is somebody you've only met at a conference one time, I think that it's a really good idea to just stay in touch with them. And it's a really easy way to do this. One of the things, I'll skip down to number 3, make touching base a priority. I actually schedule this in my calendar. Typically on Friday afternoons, I'll probably go around and do it at some point this afternoon. Is I sit down and kind of browse LinkedIn, see what people have been doing, send notes to people who've done interesting things, congratulate people who have been promoted or have worked on an interesting project, share some articles, email people with articles I think they're interested in, kind of share any job opportunities that have come my way, answer email, and just really make that sort of staying in touch a priority. I have to schedule it on my calendar or it won't happen, but it's a really, really important part of just building and maintaining that network. Getting creative with communication, I'll hop back up to number 2. This is something that I think anybody can do, no matter who you are, what you're doing, or what stage you are at in your career. Some people do it by having a blog and kind of sharing blog posts now and then. I have an old coworker who actually creates an email newsletter, and she sends it out to everybody in her network once a month. And it's articles she's written, it's articles that she has found interesting. It's kind of just interesting things that have happened in her life. It's put together in this really short, fun, bulleted format, and she sends it out to everybody once a month. And it's just like, hey, here's what I've been up to. And it's a great way to make sure that, she's top of mind. I think that when she is job hunting sometime down the line, she'll probably put that in her newsletter, and it will feel natural. It will feel, relevant. It will feel like the right way to reach out to everybody because she has been reaching out to people all along. The next thing I think that's really important, and this is something obviously that I think, again, Pepperdine people do better than anybody else in the world, is being generous. So actively look for ways to help people out. Whether it is, you see somebody is hiring an intern and you know somebody who would be awesome, connect them. If you, see an event that you think would be interesting and you know somebody who would really benefit from it, kind of send that note and put the two together. If you see somebody is, rebuilding a website and for their nonprofit and you have a little bit of extra time, offer to lend your hand. Look for these ways to sort of help people out here and there, even if it's really little things. And that can go a really, really long way in just showing people that you care, showing people that you're engaged in networking, and building those relationships over time. Sending invites and resources again. People do this to me all the time. Like, hey, I saw this great article, was thinking about you, enjoy. Finding little ways to be generous. It's something that people really, really appreciate because not many people do it. All right, so I started this section with kind of turning your contacts. I started the section on turning your contacts into opportunities with staying relevant and being generous because, again, this is so much of what it is. It is showing your contacts that you're in it for the long haul. You're interested in building a long-term relationship with them long before you ever sort of ask them for something. You want to show people that relationships aren't one-sided. You want to sort of be this person that other people want to help. So when you are ready to ask for help, you have the best chance of success. You have this army of people who knows you, who likes you, who respects you, who thinks you do good work, who has seen you do good work because, you're out there on LinkedIn, you're sharing stuff, who thinks highly of you and who's ready to help you. So on that note, we'll move on to how to ask the right way. And I think there are 3 rules here. Be respectful, be reasonable, and be specific. What I mean by be respectful is I get a lot of requests from people who are sort of they want something now. Hey, can you recommend me for this job tomorrow? Can you do it as soon as possible? I'm applying for this job. Can you call the hiring manager, ASAP? And the truth is people are busy and they don't have a lot of time. And any time they put into going out of their way to help you is sort of a burden on their time, and even when they're happy to do it. So be respectful of people's time and sort of their relationships as well. I think that's something else that's really important. I'm connected at this point with people who have pretty great jobs. And when somebody I barely know sort of asks for an introduction to them, that sort of puts me in a tough position. So any kind of ask you make, you want to think about who you're asking, kind of what you're asking of them, what kind of burden it will put on them, what kind of, relationships they might have to navigate, and just be respectful of that, and sort of reasonable in your ask. Most important though, I think, be specific about how people can help you. So if you're looking for a job, this happens to me a lot too. People will say, hey, I'm looking for a job. Can you help me? And sure, I'm definitely happy to help, but I don't know what you need. Helping somebody look for a job can be anything from, helping them look at their resume to helping them find opportunities to putting them in touch with somebody. If you can be really specific about what you are looking for and what you need from each specific person that you reach out to, that's going to go a lot further than sort of a general ask for help. We actually have a great template that sort of walks through what to include in an email when you are reaching out specifically for looking for a job. So for anybody who's graduating right now, assuming that you are starting to look for jobs, and when you're using your network and when you're using the people that you know, feel free to reach out to them, and do reach out to them, but do be very specific about, what you're looking for, the companies you're interested in, the roles you're interested in. If you don't know that, then at least be as specific as possible about the skills you have, the areas that you might possibly be interested in. Anything you can sort of give people makes it easier for them to help you. So here's a good example of that. Instead of I'm looking for a new job, can you help me? Saying something like, I'm looking for mid-level marketing manager positions in the beauty industry in Los Angeles. Could you let me know if you hear of anything? Breaking this down, it tells somebody what type of position you're looking for, where you're looking for it, and what exactly you want the other person to do, which is keep an eye out or keep an ear out for any opportunities. This is another example I hear a lot. So informational interviews, which I'm sure you guys have heard about a lot this week, sitting down with people who have careers that are interesting to you or have jobs that are interesting to you is such a great way to learn about interesting companies and positions and job titles and industries. The best way to ask people for this is not just to say, can I pick your brain about your career? It's to let them know what you'll be asking about and how much time you need. I made this simple change kind of the last time I was looking for a new career, and it made a world of difference. When people know, like, okay, I just need to give you 15 or 30 minutes over the phone or over a coffee, and I know what you're going to be asking me about, they're more likely to schedule you into their calendar. Here are a few things that I think are really great to ask for, especially at this point when you are kind of graduating or if you are looking for a new job. Informational interviews, again, I think are fantastic. They're a great way not only to kind of figure out what types of fields, what types of jobs or careers are interesting to you, but also sort of an easy way to ease into networking and to meet people and to get your name and face out there. Every time you sit down with somebody, treat it like an actual interview. Kind of be prepared to share what you're good at, what you're looking for, and just be really impressive in your conversation about whatever you're talking about with the other person. A lot of times I've seen informational interviews turn into real interviews and turn into jobs. So I think the more of these that you can do and the more seriously you kind of treat them, the better off you'll be. The next thing you can ask for is connections. So if you see that somebody you know is connected to, a recruiter or someone who works in an interesting company, definitely feel free to make that ask. Again, assuming that it's respectful, reasonable, that you're not doing, all the asking and none of the giving. But definitely feel free to ask your connections to make introductions to their connections for you. And then finally, again, asking people to kind of keep an eye out for positions for you, for opportunities for you. This is something that every time I've been job seeking, I have done this, and it has gotten me job opportunities or job leads every single time. I'm going to paste that email template in here for you. I'll do it at the end of the session so you have it. And in general, again, so at this point in your career especially, you might not have a lot of contacts. You're definitely looking for a job. Use your network, make new connections, use them to help you. But keep this rule in mind, just really be someone that people want to help. Be professional, be generous, be respectful, be reasonable, be specific. And really be yourself. I think that's really, really important, and that's something that people often forget when they're networking, when they're job hunting. Be yourself, and if you do that and you go out of your way to sort of be generous, be helpful, people will want to help you. And again, especially Pepperdine people. Pepperdine people want to help. They want to help alumni succeed. I've had such great luck kind of going into the Pepperdine alumni database, looking for people who work for companies that are interesting, looking for people who have great jobs, and just emailing them and kind of reaching out and explaining, hey, this is who I am, this is what I do, I'm a Pepperdine alumni, I see you are too, here's what I think is interesting about your background, would you have 15 minutes to hop on the phone with me? People, 9 times out of 10, are more than willing to help other Pepperdine people. And I think that's just such an amazing opportunity that a lot of schools don't have and that we definitely do. And use that to your advantage. It's been so helpful in my career. It's been so helpful for many of my friends. And I think that's something that's just definitely worth taking advantage of. At this point, I would love to hear what questions you guys have, or kind of what you have been, the networking events you've gone to, stuff that you've been dealing with, any questions you have too about the job search. Changing careers is something that I talk about a lot. Any questions you have, I am happy to take them.
You have questions?
I have one question here in the chat that I'll answer if that's okay, Amy.
That's great. And then we have 2 questions in the room, so we'll bounce back here after you're done.
So this question is, do you have any networking tips for when you live in a different state than you were hoping to find a job in, i.e. you live in New York but you want a job in Colorado? Yes, I do, and I've done this multiple times, so I have lots of tips. So one is to start making connections before you go. So I typically will go to LinkedIn, and you can do this on Facebook too, and do a location search for people that are in your network. And oftentimes there are people who are there who you forgot were there, you didn't expect to be there. Get in touch with those people, no matter how random they are. So if it's somebody from high school, if it's your uncle, if it's a college friend, you say, hey, I'm moving to the area. I am going to be looking for jobs in XYZ field, and I would love to sort of, get back in touch, connect with you, and then hear if you know anybody who you can introduce me to in those fields. And a lot of times, those connections have opened up kind of a world of new connections. So make a list of people, first contacts and second degree contacts who you could talk to. And then spend 15 to 30 minutes on the phone with each of them. And again, you can sort of just reach out and say, hey, I'm thinking about moving to the area. I would love to pick your brain. Get on the phone and ask them any questions you have and just start getting to know people there. Secondly, if you can, I would recommend going out and spending a week or 2 weeks in your new city and doing the same thing, trying to set up informational interviews with people, talk to recruiters at companies you're interested in, going to networking events or meetups, getting connected with the Pepperdine alumni network there. If there are conferences or events in your field, you can plan trips around those things. That can kind of give you the biggest bang for your buck in terms of meeting people. And then I would also say if you are looking for jobs, you definitely want to have a job before you move. A lot of big companies will do kind of relocation reimbursements. A lot of times they're more open to it than small companies, so that can be a good place to start looking. So those are a couple of things that have worked really well for me.
Great. Well, so we have 2 questions in the room. We'll start with you here in the red sweater. What's your question? So in summary, her question is she's interested in 2 fields, marketing and finance, and so she's trying to decide sort of how to approach people in the job search process and the networking process when she kind of has 2 possible paths that she's interested in.
Yeah, that's a really great question and something that I sympathize with. I too have lots of different interests and sort of had a hard time deciding which field to pursue. So a couple of things. One, you can go to events that are specific for marketing professionals and specific for finance professionals, and that lets you sort of network in both of those communities without having to say the whole, oh, I'm interested in 2 field things. When you're at the marketing events, you can sort of talk about your interest in marketing, and when you're in the finance events, you can do the same. And that might actually sort of help you spend time with more people in those fields and kind of decide, or at least sort of feel out, which community is something that you might be interested in. When you are talking to people who, aren't in either field or sort of your broader network, I think at this point, honestly, it's okay to say that you're interested in both fields and that you're looking at opportunities in both fields. I think the important thing is to be genuine and to come off not like you're flighty and you don't know what you want to do, but that you have real interest in these 2 fields, and you're interested in marketing because of XYZ, you're interested in finance because of ABC, and you're interested in opportunities in both of those fields for those reasons. I think if you have a compelling story behind it, and especially in the early stages of your career, it's totally understandable.
Great. You have another question back here? So in email conversations, what's the best way to ask about possible job openings without sounding desperate?
I think one of I got an email, not yesterday, a couple of days ago from someone who did this very effectively. And she started with, kind of a general update and then moved on to, here are some of the things that I've been doing lately and working on and interested in, but I'm also open to other opportunities. Let me know if you ever hear of anything. And so she started with kind of, here's what I'm doing, here's what I'm passionate about, here's why I'm interested in sorry, I can hear an echo just a little bit. It threw me up there for a second. She led with kind of the benefit and why she was so awesome before she went into the ask. And she kept the ask very casual, which was really nice and sort of doesn't put any pressure on the person you're asking. So if you can do it in a way that shares your value and then sort of casually like, oh, by the way, if you're interested in anybody awesome like me, just let me know, keep me in mind. That can be a really effective way to do it without sounding desperate.
All right.
Now unmuted. So she mentioned replying by faith. My question is there a moment that follow up?
Yeah. So the question is, you talked about kind of the timeliness of following up after you've met someone, that 48-hour window. Is there a time where it's gone too long? Like, is there an inappropriate time when it's just been too long and it's just not even worth following up?
I mean, I think that I've had people do it a few weeks after and it's been fine. I would say, it's always worth it to follow up, even if it's late. Better late than never. But it does just make such a better impression if you can do it, within that 48-hour window, or even a week. Like that's really when you're going to make the biggest impression. So if you met somebody 2 months ago and you're like, oh man, I totally forgot to follow up and I really, really want to get in touch with them, go for it. The worst they can do is not respond. But it's just better to do it as soon as possible.
Your line is now unmuted.
So the question was, you talked a lot about networking events and how to sort of make the most of those events. Do you have any recommendations about where to find out about industry events or networking events that are happening in your area?
Yeah, so any kind of professional organizations in your field is a really great way to do that. So for example, I started my career in PR and marketing, and the American Marketing Association, the Public Relations Society of America, the International Association of Business Communicators. Those are kind of three heavy hitters in that world, and they all had events, from small things like little, happy hours to kind of big conferences. So look for local chapters of the big players in your industry and go to their events page on their website, and that's a really great way to find things. If you're looking for more general things, again, Pepperdine alumni things are great. Meetup.com is great. Another thing that I have seen people do, and it's sort of really fun, is especially if you're in a smaller city or in a smaller industry, plan your own event or find a colleague or find a friend and plan an event together. And each invite, 3 or 4 people who are kind of interested in the same thing. Have them each bring 3 or 4 people that are kind of interested in the same thing. Pick a bar, pick a restaurant or house, and have everybody come and kind of host your own networking event. And it's a way to do that in sort of a more comfortable setting, but still be making lots of new connections.
Your line is now unmuted.
I would follow up by saying that I just lost my train of thought. Other questions?
LinkedIn groups too. You can join LinkedIn groups for your industry, and a lot of times they have, they can be a great resource for finding out about events in your industry.
Yeah, another unique element of LinkedIn groups, particularly among professional associations or like the Pepperdine Alumni Association, is that you also then have the ability to direct message people that you share membership with in that group. So they may not be directly in your network and you might not be able to connect with them otherwise, but if you're in that group, you all of a sudden have the ability to communicate more directly with them, maybe ask for an informational interview or ask for advice, from them. So those groups can be really powerful. I also was going to say that if you're not sure about kind of associations or gatherings, events in your field, talk to a mentor or talk to maybe a supervisor at an internship. Maybe ask them what types of associations they're part of or what types of conferences and events they find themselves attending in that field. They might be a good source of wisdom for that type of thing as well. Other questions from the group? Other questions online? Wonderful. Well, Adrian, thank you so much for your time and for sharing your expertise with us. And for those of you who are participating, and we also have been recording this session, so if you have other people who you think would benefit from hearing this message online, these will be posted on our Career Center website at Pepperdine. So definitely follow up and maybe share that out with someone, or if you want to go back and capture some more of the notes or the presentation that Adrian shared, those will be available. And of course, check out themuse.com. They have tons of resources. They have daily emails. They have just an endless kind of outpouring of resources that I have personally found really valuable, and I know that you will too. So I would encourage you to take advantage of those as well. And thank you to Adrian, and thank you to everyone who participated online. Have a great day, and thanks for participating in Pepperdine Career Week.
Thanks so much for having me. Bye, everybody.
You